board will now hold morning public comment. Each individual is limited to 3 minutes, and Mrs. Cordial will let you know when your time is up. Before we begin, as a reminder for the board and for the public, we cannot hear comments related to quasi-judicial matters. Quasi-judicial matters in our November agenda include Adams 14 and Pueblo accountability hearings and the Ascent Classical Academy Flatirons versus Boulder Valley School District Charter School appeal on Thursday. Please note that signs and banners will not be allowed in the state boardroom during our meetings. Also, if you would like to provide comment on one of the 3 rulemaking hearings that we'll be having at this meeting, there are specific designated times for those, and we would appreciate if you would come and speak to those at that time. There is a sign-up sheet outside for those rulemaking hearings. So I think we're going to be okay in terms of our time. Also want to remind you that state board members do not engage in public comment. In other words, we will not answer a question for you in public, etc. If you have some questions that you want us to answer, send us that question and we'll make sure that it is addressed. Thank you. Let's begin, please, with Kevin Wick. Kevin Wick. Maybe? How about Sharon Raha or Raha?
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board, and Commissioner Anthus. Mine actually deals with a specific rulemaking component, and so is it okay if I speak this morning, or are we waiting till the afternoon?
When is the hearing for that?
I believe it's going to be at 3:30.
Would you be kind enough to come back then, please?
Okay.
Thank you. All right, Sharon, you want to try that? Sorry. And let's hope he signs up. Did he catch that part? Maybe not. Would you? Thank you. Please go ahead and state your name and if you represent any organizations.
My name is Sharon Ronnie. I'm a native of Adams County. I'm the youngest of 8 kids who attended and graduated from Adams County schools.
Are you talking about Adams 14?
I am talking about Adams County schools. I'm here because I'm very concerned that the foundation in our county is broken. This one hearing today is not the only problem in our county in terms of education.
Julie, please help me. I don't want to be disrespectful, but we are...
Well, the board's procedures and regarding public comment, you've asked for this topic not to be covered. That's not an absolute legal mandate, but it has been the board's practice about the procedure. So
Right. I'm sorry.
I'm not helping you much.
That's okay.
Sorry.
Can I speak this afternoon?
No, because for the hearings that we have for Adams 14 and Pueblo, we don't have a public comment period. We've had a long period of seeking input from anyone and everyone, which in fact we have received. And that was the process that we used so that all of us heard it and that it was available to the public as well.
Thank you for that. Just know our whole county is broken. It's not one school. It's our whole county.
Thank you. Guillermo Serna. Sorry, handwriting. Okay.
Guillermo Serna, Commerce City, Colorado, District 14.
Sir, I'm really sorry. We've specifically said that no public comment relating to Adams 14 schools.
So then you've already made a decision?
We have not. We have asked for public comment. The process that we have requested has been for I don't know how many weeks.
How many of you have been to our district?
Sir, I'm going to ask you to please.
you.
respect the policy that we set.
It's not fair to the children of our district when one person wants to get up here and speak to you in perspective to those children that are going to be affected.
I'm sorry, we have had a lot of opportunity. We have asked for
It
considerable
has
input.
not been enough, because we wouldn't be here in these situations if, let's say, for the last 10 years
Sir,
and maybe
sir,
longer.
please respect our process.
I understand that, but please respect our community also.
We are doing everything we can for your community, and we will be talking about this today. We will be listening to the community. We have read mountains of input. We'll be talking about it again tomorrow.
It is still not fair to our community. What has to happen should not be an example
Sir, I'm going to ask you.
just
Please be
because.
respectful of our process.
No, I
Please
understand. I
respectful of all the
respect
other
every
folks,
single one of you.
all the
You're-
other people who did, in fact, follow our process. We've had tremendous amount of input.
Not enough.
I don't know how you can say that when we have not begun even to deliberate.
Because
What's
you
enough
do,
and what's
do
not
you
enough.
know the history of our school district?
Yes, we do. Yes, we
From
have.
when?
Sir, please.
I'm just
I'm
asking.
going to ask you to please leave, or
okay,
please sit down.
okay,
at least.
I'll sit
Please stop
down.
talking.
I'll
Thank
sit
you.
down.
Don't leave. Please live and listen.
No, I wouldn't want to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I need to repeat our process? If you're here to speak about it, Adams 14, this is no longer an opportunity for you to do that. Or Pueblo. Or the charter appeal.
Correct.
So. Okay. NZVZ?
Hello,
Hi. Introduce
board
yourself,
members.
please, and tell
I
us
will,
who you
ma'am.
represent.
Board
Thank you.
members and Madam Rankin. My name is MZ VZ III. What I'm going to speak about is be very quick, and Madam Rankin can tell you I can speak on a lot of different subjects. It's about speed reading, about the New York State Regents examinations in the public libraries. That was really because of what? Andrew Carnegie, all right? Speed reading. And I'm really looking at the people who tend to be, like, she had it in the Vail Daily article about how a lot of kids can't really read, all right? Third grade or whatever else they're under, all right? What happens, you can deal with more of those kids and use speed reading to bring them up to par or beyond. Those who already have the money, they don't need the school system for it. But also the libraries can do it because Andrew Carnegie spread knowledge around the country and also around the world. So a lot of people could teach themselves how to do things. Now, the New York State Regents examinations are 152 years old. Yes, a lot of things have changed. But a lot of famous people who came out of New York City, out of the high schools and all that, they had to take those examinations to pass. Look, that's all I'm going to say. I have 11 packets here. Busy, ma'am, and we did meet earlier. She was just so nice to me. 9 for you all, 2 for her and another person. Look, and thank you very much, and let's see what we can do. Ciao.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Kristen DeBeer?
Hello, my name is Kristen DeBeer, and I'm a parent in the Douglas County School District. I'm here today to express my concerns about the state complaint resolution process and to share my experiences in order to help others. My son is a student with learning disabilities on an individualized education plan. At the end of his sophomore year, his school said they were unlawfully terminating his IEP, so we felt we had no other choice than to file a state complaint with the Colorado Department of Education. During what we felt was a thorough and neutral investigation, the state complaint officer told me that her job was to help parents and districts learn and understand the laws surrounding students with disabilities. If she found no violations, it would help us understand our child's rights more clearly. And if she did find violations, it would help the district understand and correct their actions. This process reassured me that the intent was, when we know better, we do better. However, I'd like to point out a few critical flaws in the process once we received the SCO's decision, which I've shared with you, which ultimately found multiple violations and ordered a corrective action plan. Number one, we did not receive a copy of the CAP, which is a public document pertaining to the remedies on our complaint. Two, when the school did not comply with the ordered remedies, our only recourse was to file a second state complaint, further delaying corrective action. Three, the CAP for the second complaint was accepted using training completed for the first complaint remedy, which was conducted before the second complaint investigation was even started. And four, my son didn't receive any IEP services for a full year after they attempted to unlawfully terminate it, while the complaints were investigated and the school dragged out the process of rewriting his state-ordered IEP. I wish I could say my story ends there, but unfortunately it does not. Our school district filed a due process complaint in May of 2018 against us. Yes, against us, the parents, in order to appeal the SCO's decision for compensatory services for our son, even though both of our state complaint decisions read that they were final and not subject to appeal. We had a choice: either pay the legal expenses to defend the state's decision or forsake our son's right to special education services. This choice would place many Colorado families in an impossible position because they do not have the means to either retain attorneys to pay for private services, as we did during that interim year. While our costs are significant, the Douglas County School District has paid upwards of $100,000 in legal fees to spare itself the relatively insignificant cost of services for our son. Unfortunately for us, the administrative law judge's order was not in our favor and claims that because the SCO's findings were not developed following an adversarial hearing providing due process to both parties, the ALJ deems it inappropriate to give any weight to the SCO's findings or conclusions. And just days after the decision, the CDE sent us a letter stating that the remaining items on the corrective action plan have been vacated by the outcome of the due process. So I ask you, what else is a parent to do? What is the point of a dispute resolution process within the State Department of Education if decisions which are final and not subject to appeal can be appealed by a school district and given no weight in due process against the parents? Where's the protection for students with disabilities, whether or not their parents have the means or ability to pursue their child's rights under the law? I believe this system has deep flaws to the point of being broken, both for families and for districts, and I ask you to help me make it better. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Lisa Skarska. I couldn't read that one either, but at least I knew which one it was. Help me, folks. Maybe print. Maybe we should put on their print, please.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chairperson. I think the formal title, Chairwoman. Thank you. And distinguished members of the State Board, I am Dr. Lisa Skarska. I'm the Executive Director of the Colorado Association of School Executives. I am here to talk about the topic upcoming tomorrow, the school performance frameworks discussion that you're going to have, very briefly. And you received a letter from 134 school districts across the state, and I believe you've gotten it, you've read it, it's in the record. And so there's just a couple things about it I want to point out. And actually, I should kind of step back and say the 134 districts truly represent the state. We have the highest performing districts on this letter and districts from every corner, right? So that's why I feel assured that they are all on the same page. There's two items, I think, that just to talk about the asks that are inside the letter. The first one was for the upcoming November meeting regarding the 2019 frameworks. We asked the State Board exercise their authority under, and you know the rule, to reaffirm the 2018 targets for the measures used to determine the levels of attainment of the performance indicators for the coming academic year. We have seen the proposed the proposal from the department that is on the agenda tomorrow. It's exactly what we asked for, and we really want to thank you. We know that this all happened very quickly. It was a very quick turnaround, and I want to personally say that I think it takes assured and in-touch leadership to pull back on a recommendation when things like this happen. And so we really want to thank you for stepping out on that. Then regarding the 2020 frameworks and beyond, we ask the State Board consider revisions and additions to the current targets, and after such time that the Colorado Department of Ed and all relevant stakeholder groups have had an opportunity to investigate and clarify how potential changes to targets and the inclusion of new measures affects the accountability system as a whole. So essentially, I would say just keep it up. Keep up the process that you're going through. Keep everybody, and not just school districts. I mean, not just administrators. It is community. It is parents. It's students even at the high school level. So with that, thank you, and have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there anyone else here who want to speak on something other than our 3 areas which are not open? In that case, that ends our public comment. And we will move on to accountability hearing for Adams County School District 14 and Adams City High School. Case number 17-AR-10. Colorado State Board of Education will now conduct a hearing in case number 17-AR-10 concerning the accountability status of Adams County School District 14 and Adams City High School. The matter is coming back before the board pursuant to the board's July 16, 2017, June 16, 2017 written determination. Under the Education Accountability Act, if a school district remains on priority improvement or turnaround after the state board directs an action, the state board may in any year, but shall every 2 years require the district to continue the previously directed action or undertake additional or different action. During this hearing, the board will be considering the report and recommendation of the State Review Panel pursuant to 22-11-2093 and 22-11-2105B CRS. This report and the recommendation are included in the record and available on board docs. The Commissioner and her staff are here today to present an overview of the accountability hearing process and provide information regarding Adams 14 School District and Adams City High School. Adams County School District 14 will present an update on their plan, how it was implemented, why it has not yet resulted in significant improvements, and proposed steps for moving forward. The State Board's consideration of the matter shall be limited to materials submitted by the district, background information submitted by the department, any written public comment received by the deadline and maintained in the record of proceedings, responses to any additional questions asked by board members prior to the hearing, which are included in the record, and the contents of today's hearing. The department and district shall each have a maximum of 30 minutes to present, and the hearing shall proceed as follows. The department shall introduce the matter and provide general background information. The district shall give their presentation. Board members may not interrupt with questions during this time. Ms. Cordial will let you know when you have 5 minutes remaining in your presentations. Following the presentations of both the department and the district, the State Board shall have an opportunity to ask questions of the district, department, or legal counsel and deliberate for a time period not to exceed 1 hour. I'd like to propose that individual board questions that we spend about 40-45 minutes, that we reserve 15 minutes for each board member to share overall thoughts with the district and the audience today. If additional time is needed, deliberations may carry over to later today, or there's also time set aside on the agenda for tomorrow. State Board shall deliberate and make a determination by majority vote, assigning appropriate staff or counsel as needed to reduce the board's order into written form. Before we begin, I'd like us to take a moment to talk about the unusual situation which is in front of this board today. The State Board is in an uncharacteristic role and rare role. We usually focus on guardrails and leave the details to local control. This is a unique situation due to the very concerning outcomes for students over such a significant length of time. It's important for the State Board to step into this additional statutorily determined role in order to advocate for students' needs. We don't take this lightly, and we are deeply concerned for the students and families of your community. We want to thank you all for coming today, sharing your concerns with us, and to talk about the best ways to move forward for your students. At this time, I would ask the department staff presenters to introduce themselves for the record. Before they begin the presentation regarding Adams 14, I'd like the department to provide us a reminder, an overview of the accountability process.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board. We'll do quick introductions, and then we're going to turn it over to Brenda to walk you through that overview. My name is Alyssa Pearson. I'm the Deputy Commissioner at CDE.
Thank you, Brenda Bouch, Accountability Specialist.
Lisa Medler, Executive Director of Improvement Planning.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. We are just going to very quickly provide an overview of this process. This applies not just for this hearing in front of you today, this morning, but also for the hearing for 2 Pueblo schools coming this afternoon as well. So we're just doing this process now at the start of both of those hearings, a process overview. One second, please.
Sure.
As a reminder that this is the flow chart we typically show you when we talk about the accountability clock. This schools and districts before you today have reached the end of the clock and came before you in 2017. We're now at the far right side of this flow chart where the school has continued to receive ongoing support and monitoring. House Bill 1355 that passed last year added some clarity in statute around what occurs after that 5-year mark, and that's what we will be operating under today. Statute directs that the state board you have a variety of materials to inform your decision today. These are all included in your board packet and posted on board docs. But statute directs that in making decisions today, the state board consider the recommendations of the state review panel, the actions the district or school were previously directed to take, the fidelity with which the district or school implemented that directed action, and whether the amount of time was reasonably sufficient for the district or school to achieve results. Statute also directs the state board to then, after taking that into consideration, determine whether to keep the existing action or to issue different or additional actions to the school or district. But based on the previous statutory list, so the actions are still tied to that original list that you considered in 2017 with management, reorganization for districts, charter, closure, or innovation. I'm going to go quickly through the rest of these slides. They are in your packet. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them of us, of staff. But the options before you today, we did just want to highlight and note that there is a continuum amongst these within each option as well. So while the list itself is quite narrow, there's differences in how those actions could be directed or implemented. So for example, for district management, there's targeted management of a district that really focuses on a certain area, for example, performance management or leadership training. That's on one end of the continuum. On the other end of the continuum could be whole district management, where you have an entity that really is providing comprehensive management and full operational support for that school district. Similarly, for schools, you could have a management direction that is targeted for a certain area, perhaps for instructional support, or you could have full school operations where that entity is wholly operating that school. District reorganization and loss of accreditation is also a statutory option. One thing to note here is that this could be something that is directed, or it could also be something that occurs if your directed action isn't implemented with the fidelity that it was intended to be implemented, or isn't complied with. So if the board directs a different action, let's say management or charter conversion, and the school district does not take that action, then loss of accreditation could occur in that instance as well. So just wanted to make note of that. The other options are charter school conversion, closure of a school, and innovation status. Again, these would be school level actions. However, with a district that's on the clock, you can direct that one or more of those schools of the district schools go through one of those actions. Are there any questions at this time on that very high level quick overview?
Colleagues? Please go ahead, Dr. Bush.
Okay, we are going to switch gears and start the Adams 14 presentation now. I'm wondering, Madam Chair, would you like the Adams 14 staff to come to the table at this time?
I would, please, yes.
Okay.
Adams 14 staff.
Thank you. So CDE is going to provide a quick overview on some of the information from the district, an overview of the accountability history of the district and the high school. Staff will share progress monitoring overview, an overview of the state review panel findings, and then some quick information based on the questions that you all have asked the parties, and we'll recap those as well. So Adams 14 School District is located just north of Denver. They serve approximately 7,400 students. Those students are in 11 schools that are between kindergarten and 12th grade, and then they've got 2 preschools in addition in the district. 5 of the 11 K through 12 schools are on the accountability clock and priority improvement based on those 2018 preliminary ratings. After reaching the end of the clock in 2017, for the district and for Adams City High School, the state board directed the district and the high school to pursue a management partnership. The state board approved a final written determination which directed this, and that's available in your packets. This slide shows an overview of the ratings for the district overall, which is that top row, and the individual schools in the district over time. You'll see that there's a variety of different levels of performance of their schools and different years on the clock at this point in time. Central Elementary Schools at year 6, and you will be hearing from them in the spring. They're due to come to you then for the end of the clock hearing. This slide shows the percent of points earned on the performance frameworks for the district is on the left, those 3 bars, and the Adams City High School on the right over the past 3 years. You can see both the district and the school showed slight drops this year, very slight. For high schools, I want to just note that the cut score for being accredited with improvement for the district is at 44%. District's currently at 36.8%. For the high school, which is currently at 39.5%, the cut score is 42% of points. This next slide shows a little bit more detail at the district level on the ratings on the district performance framework, and at the elementary level, middle level, and high school level for achievement and growth, and reading or English language arts and math. You'll see that across the board, historically, the elementary school and high school have had does not meet ratings in achievement for English language arts and math. They've seen some relatively brighter spots at the middle school level. Growth has fluctuated over time, but that growth has not been enough to catch students up in terms of achievement. But again, there's some brighter spots at the middle school level. I'm going to pass it over to my colleague, Lisa Medler, now to talk about the progress monitoring report. She's been deeply involved in supporting the district over these past 3 years, multiple years.
Okay, so I am going to just spend a few minutes talking about the progress monitoring of the plan that was approved in spring 2017. This is not an overview of all of the last few years. This is really just a progress monitoring report. I also want to clarify, you'll be hearing from Brenda afterward on going over the state review panel report. Those reports did not inform each other necessarily. Because of the timing, this progress monitoring report came to you at about the same time that the state review panel report came out, okay? And then just so you're aware, CDE does consider a wide variety of data sources in putting together these reports. So I was on site in the district actually quite a bit. So visiting schools, but working upon request of the district frequently. By the second semester, actually weekly, to help them manage their plan, make sure they're on track, help them problem solve as things came up. I also was in frequent contact with other offices within the Department of Education for different grant opportunities, as well as other services. So we were really trying to create a much more cohesive and coordinated effort within the district. I also looked at interim data from the district, both student level as well as implementation data, so that was considered as well. And then certainly had time to connect with and get feedback from and data from the management partners, so groups like Beyond Textbooks and other groups as well. Okay. So I'm going to start off with the district level, and then we will get into the high school. Overall, I'll walk through the detail, but overall, when looking at all that data, the statement was made that the current external management plan, meaning the one that was approved in spring 2017, was not enough to actually move the district forward rapidly. Now there's some areas of promise, but we're looking for tremendous acceleration, and we just were not seeing evidence of that. So to break it down a little bit, this first slide focuses a little bit more on the main part. The district plan, I think you can divide into two. The first part is on the external management partnership with Beyond Textbooks. Alyssa already went through some of the data, so I'm not going to talk a lot about that, but as you can see, it was fairly flat when you're looking at it, at least from the state perspective. In thinking about the fidelity of the implementation to that external management plan, overall, it was being implemented in good faith by the district and with the external management group Beyond Textbooks. There were some hiccups along the way, which is not surprising. It did interfere a little bit with their implementation. Things like their data management system was not up and running as quickly as anticipated, so that really interfered with the overall implementation of the process. But for the most part, people were doing what was asked of them. Teachers were digging in. They're in different places, different levels of acceptance, but definitely moving that forward. Moving on to, I'd say, part 2 of the plan that was approved for the district. This was really focused on what the district had committed to move turnaround efforts on their own. So if you remember, the Beyond Textbooks was really focused on 3 schools. The district also committed to working specifically with the remaining schools on their own processes. So the other remaining 8 schools. And overall, again, people working very hard. But the systems just are not sophisticated enough to actually see a lot of progress. A lot of work having to go into setting up those systems. Also really struggling with communicating that to the public and really listening and having that then integrate into their process, kind of adjusting along the way. So I would say we can certainly go into more detail, but I think you guys know that there was considerable turnover, and there's a history of systems kind of fading away when individuals leave, and I would say the same is probably true for this past year. So again, still some bright spots along the way, but just not enough change to really make significant impact. Okay, moving on to the high school. Again, same overall comment that in considering all these data pieces, that the plan that was approved in spring 2017 was not enough for that rapid acceleration. Again, some promising things happening, people working very hard, but not enough improvement to think that we that it was enough. I want to also remind you guys at the time that there was not a leadership team in place at the high school when they came before you in the spring of 2017. They were in the process of hiring a new high school principal and assistant principals. So the plan was written for them, and they inherited that, and then spent the last year trying to get that up and running. So they had the work with Beyond Textbooks in grades 9 and 10, again, worked with them, adjusted along the way. So I would say that was being implemented. They are refining it further this year. They also they had some plans to focus on grades 11 and 12, but that was less clear as to what was going to happen there. And so I'd say anything moving forward, they probably need more detail there. I would say that the high school also struggled with that two-way communication as well with the public. So the idea of being able to push out information as well as take information in and adjust based on what the community was asking for. I am now going to hand this over to Brenda Bausch.
Thank you. The State Review Panel conducted a follow-up or progress monitoring visit in September 28th. They used the same protocol and rubric that they did in their original visit that they conducted in 2017. However, they had a little bit of a different lens, and so they asked different questions. They interviewed school leadership staff, community members, district level staff, and with that lens of, is this plan being implemented well and with fidelity, and is it having an impact? And so I'm going to share some of the highlights. You have the full report, on board docs, and the executive summary, the recommendation report in your board packets. And I'll, as Lisa did, I'm going to walk through the district first and then in the high school. But the findings from the district level really centered around a theme of limited evidence that the current district leadership has the capacity to implement the changes needed to rapidly move this district off of the accountability clock. They did find that Beyond Textbooks was providing instructional support that is helpful, but that it is not enough. And they even reported that all stakeholders that they did talk to indicated that it's Beyond Textbooks alone would not be enough to get those gains that we need to see in a rapid time frame. They also noted the kind of tension between the district and the community, and that there wasn't a shared vision for how to move forward, and a lack of urgency there as well. They ultimately recommended that the district be managed by a public or private entity, and they recommended a continuation of the Beyond Textbooks partnership as well to support the instruction and continue to make progress there. But their focus on this new management entity would, the panel report states, provide true management to provide clear oversight and direction for the school district, and they list a number of areas that they would expect that this management entity would address. They, in their recommendation in terms of explaining why they were going with this external management entity, as they describe it, and not the other routes, they really again come back to this justification of the lack of the leadership capacity within the district, that it would make it really difficult to authorize a charter school or close or reorganize the district or operate innovation schools with the current infrastructure and leadership in place. However, they did note that with an external entity in place, some of these other options could then become more feasible and be done more effectively. And with school closure, they didn't find that closing a single school would necessarily address the systemic problems and the lack of infrastructure at the district level. In regards to the high school specifically, so they did come, there was 2 different panelists that went to did the district visit versus this high school visit, and so it was a separate visit and a dedicated evaluation of the high school. And they found similar themes at the district level in terms of Beyond Textbooks putting some positive instructional supports in place, but it not necessarily being enough to move that high school where it needs to be, and right now currently only in grades 9 through 10. So they really pointed to the need to have further support and oversight and leadership within that school. They did note also that the union contract presented some problems in relationship to professional development and talent management, and really pointed to the need for a cohesive leadership team to be in place at that school. So their recommendation was also for an external management entity to come into the high school to provide that true decision-making authority and oversight and accountability, to really provide some leadership development support as well, and to take stock of kind of the current programs and efforts underway at the high school and provide recommendations for what really the high school needs to focus on to move forward and see those successful gains for students. In not recommending other pathways, they noted sort of the unique situation that this is the district's only comprehensive high school. And so that really does make it difficult when thinking about how you would potentially charter or close such a school when it is really the only high school within the district. There is an alternative education campus as well that serves high school students. And they note with innovation status that could be a way to get some of the waivers from the collective bargaining agreement that are creating barriers for improvement within the school. However, they didn't find that what current leadership capacity had, there wasn't capacity within the current leadership team to effectively implement an innovation plan. That is the summary of a high-level summary of the state review panel's findings. One other element that you have at your disposal was information that was requested by individual board members, that staff that then went and compiled some answers in conjunction with district staff as well. There were a couple of requests that came in after the board documents deadline, so this is just a summary of the requests we received before November 2nd. We did receive these requests that I will just go over very quickly to explain kind of the information that you have. One of the questions was the rate of resident students leaving the district, so choosing to enroll outside of district boundaries, but they live within the Adams 14 district boundary. And you'll see on this chart that in 2017, about 30% of resident students did choose to leave the district. That equates to about $21 million in per pupil revenue, and it's about 3 times higher than the state average of students choosing to enroll outside of their district. One of the other questions we received was around leadership and staff turnover, and this chart indicates that there is a higher rate than state average across going back the last 4 school years. On this chart, that actually goes back a little bit further in your board packet as well, the data does. So there's a consistent trend of having high turnover at all levels, district administrators down to teachers. We did receive an inquiry as well about the history of the district's exclusive chartering authority under the charters within the district. The district does hold exclusive chartering authority, and they had previously authorized a charter school community leadership academy, which has since expanded and actually has 3 school codes under CDE's protocol. It serves about 900 students. It has since been transitioned over to the Charter School Institute, however. And then the district did receive 1 charter application in July 2018, which they voted on last night. They voted on to deny that application. One of the other questions we received was on the mill and bond history. So the mill override, there's been 1 that's passed to date. There's been 3 others that have failed. It passed in 1996, the mill levy override. There's been 7 bond initiatives since 1996, 4 of which have failed and 3 have passed. 1 passed, the last one to pass was in 2006 for that one. And finally, the last piece of information in this PowerPoint is around the federal and state grant funding. This is something we presented to you in the 2017 hearing, and so just to give an update on that, they have continued to receive state support, state and federal grant support in a total of about $115,000 for last school year. A lot of that went through to the state turnaround leadership development grant program, so they were able to send principals and aspiring principals to leadership development programs. And that concludes our presentation. We're going to actually hold on questions for now and turn it over to the district for their presentation at this time.
Could the first speaker please introduce not only him or herself, but also your colleagues, so that we know who you are?
Thank you. Good morning, Madam Chair, State Board of Education members, and Commissioner Anthus. I am Javier Abrego, the Superintendent of Adams 14. With me today are Dr. Jeanette Patterson, Executive Director of Curriculum Instruction, our Governing Board President, Ms. Connie Quintana, and the Principal of Adams City High School, Ms. Gabriela Maldonado.
Thank you. Go ahead.
And moving forward, last year we asked the State Board for your approval on a 3-year plan with Beyond Textbooks as our external management partner. Today we'll give you our progress on year one of implementation. This presentation will follow the format of the Adams team responding to the 3 questions. First from the district's perspective, followed by the point of view of Adams City High School. In our responses, we will highlight successes of the district and the high school, and we will also share the next steps for systemic reform. The Adams Governing Board understands the difficult situation of the district and our schools. The past 2 years, our Governing Board dedicated funds to specifically improve professional development, curriculum and instruction, and technology. We are pleased to inform you that for the first time in Adams 14 has 3 performing schools, and we do not have any schools in turnaround. At this time, I have President Quintana make a few statements about our board's commitment to turnaround.
Thank you. My name is Connie Quintana, and I am the president of Adams 14 Board of Education. I have served on the board since 2013, and I've worked in the district for 36 years. So I'm kind of know what's going on. The board is committed to doing everything it can to improve the district's performance. I believe all of us who serve on the board have a sense of urgency, and the board is committed to doing everything it can to accelerate the improvement. The board recognizes it needs outside help to continue moving the district forward. We owe it to the kids, and I know that is why I serve on the school board. And I can't reiterate that more than to me, and I believe my colleagues, the students are the priority, and to find a way to get them where they need to be. Thank you.
Thank you, President Quintana, and it's been a pleasure working with you and seeing you grow educationally. For our board, I've been working with them. In my first year, we were talking about student uniforms, and now we're talking about gaps in academics, specifically in math and language arts, so thank you. Next, we want to show you a video that shows how the dollars appropriated for technology are benefiting our students.
To the Adams 14 Board of Education, we'd like to say,
thanks a million! Thanks a million! Thanks a million! Thanks a million!
Since early 2016, the Adams 14 Board approved over $1 million in increased classroom technology. That put more than 2,600 Chromebooks in neighborhood schools.
This is not a regular computer because you could tap it and it's just gonna go on it. It makes it fun because they're touch screens, so we can zoom in and zoom out.
Logging in is a breeze, and students have immediate access to schoolwork, assignments, interactive learning, and more.
Thanks a million for the Chromebooks. Thanks a million. Thanks a million!
The video shows how technology is integrated into beyond textbook curriculum to support blended learning and accelerate student achievement. Our goal is to have the 1-to-1 computer Chromebook ratio for our students in grades 3 through 12. In grades K through 2nd grade, our students use computer clusters in the classroom as well as computer labs. We want all of our students to be computer literate and prepared for the 21st century. We want technology to expand our classrooms to worldwide learning. The next slide are the most important directives that Beyond Textbook required. The first thing we did was all schools had to answer Rick DeForest's 4 questions on research. Question number 1 was, exactly what is it that we want our students to learn. And in Colorado, it's the Colorado Academic Standards. 2 is, how will we know when each student has acquired the essential knowledge and skills? And we got help with that with Beyond Textbooks Common Formative Assessments. They were implemented in all of our schools, BT schools. 3, what happens in our schools when our students do not learn? And again, Beyond Textbooks directed us to implement that 40-minute reteach block, so that's where our students go. What happens in our schools when our students meet proficiency? Again, that 40-minute block, it could either be reteach, and it also serves as an enrichment block. So when our students do learn, they go into the enrichment block. How do the common formative assessments work? And this is something that we did not have in our district. Beyond Textbooks provides us with a quick assessment. Basically, it's 5 questions. 3 of the questions are multiple choice, and 2 are open-ended. If a student gets 4 out of 5, that's 80%. That means they have mastered the standard and can move on. Again, the students that don't, we created the reteach block. And again, this is the most difficult block for our teachers to plan, because when students do not learn in the regular classroom, they have to be retaught later on in the day. Therefore, our teachers have to collaborate to see who's going to teach the reteach block and who's going to teach the enrich block. This allows us to tap into their strength, because they get a choice on who's going to do which block. Other directives that Beyond Textbooks helped us implement or directed us to implement is when we added the 2 middle schools. We weren't quite sure how we were going to do that. We knew that we were going to implement it with our 6th graders because they had it in 5th grade. But the high school principal said, well, I want our kids prepared also, so implement it at 8th grade. So our first plan was 6 and 8, and Beyond Textbooks said, no, if you're going to implement it in middle schools, implement it correctly at all grades. And the same thing happened. We added 2 elementary schools, and one of the principals said, I want to implement Beyond Textbooks at grades 3, 4, and 5. And Beyond Textbooks said, if you're going to implement our program, implement it correctly. You have to do it in all grades. So this year we have Beyond Textbooks in our 2 middle schools and 2 other elementary schools at all grades. And once again, the directives that are given, Beyond Textbooks have full authority to provide these directives, and they come back and monitor to make sure that directives were followed. The next slide just shows you the 3 questions we're going to be answering for you today. And again, I will start with the district's perspective. So question number 1, how do we implement the plan? The BT curricular framework was implemented at the high school, grades 9 and 10, in the areas of language arts, English language arts, and math. And that's how it was stated in our year 1 of our turnaround plan. Beyond Texas was also implemented in 2 schools, Rosehill Elementary and Central Elementary, once again at all grades, K through 5, language arts and math. A curricular framework was implemented district-wide with ongoing professional development, because in our district, we never had this. We had 7 different elementary schools who were addressing the standards 7 different ways. In a school, you have different sections, so every teacher was also measured standards in their own way. Not just were they measuring the standards, but when they were assessing the standards, every teacher was doing it in their own way. So now we have consistency. It means that all teachers are assessing mastery with the same criteria. The practice makes it difficult for the district. The practice of not having this consistency made it difficult for the district to gather consistent and reliable data, because everyone was doing it in their own way. Now we have a consistent framework. So the Beyond Textbook framework has established a cohesive curricular foundation in our schools. It has forced us to reorganize, expand some of our departments. One department is the data department. One thing that we did is we have an accountability and assessment manager that helps the principals analyze their gaps. We didn't have this before. I know that everyone is concerned about the READ plan, so now we have 2 people in our data department that specifically manage and monitor the READ plans. We also added 2 more people to the data department who make sure that all these assessments and completions are completed. And then we also added a federal programs and technology position, and that's very important because they monitor and align our title funds with our schools' unified improvement plans as well as our turnaround plan. So those are some of the things that we have done.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the Board of Education, and Commissioner Athens. My name is Gabriela Maldonado, and I am the proud principal of Adams City High School. I would like to thank you for the opportunity to be here today and to elevate and the renewed work and the challenges that we are committed to resolving during this transformational process. I'm just gonna scoot over here. I would like to address question number 1. How did Adams City High School implement the plan? All directives and feedback provided by Beyond Textbooks were fully implemented as we were building the capacity of our teachers and co-creating systems and structures that are fundamental to every comprehensive high school that serves a high percentage of culturally and linguistically diverse learners. For example, we were consistent in implementing the curricular scope and sequence at the 9th grade and 10th grade level for math and English, in developing common formative assessments that were aligned to standards, and implementing professional learning communities process to support the implementation of quality teaching and content-specific and grade-level teams through professional common collaborative time. This process required a paradigm shift of continuous improvement to support the teaching and learning model, in addition to ongoing coaching and professional development to train teachers to implement these structures and systems with fidelity. The instructional leadership team monitored the process through regular walkthroughs, observation, and feedback cycles in the coaching model. We established monthly visits with Beyond Textbooks and the district leadership to progress monitor the implementation benchmarks and data for continuous improvement. To strengthen our data decision-making process, we implemented Illuminate, a data and assessment, a standard-based assessment platform that helped teachers pull data reports to make timely data-based decisions to improve student success. The instructional leadership team also implemented programming that was responsive to culturally and linguistically diverse populations, which involved identifying and placing students based on their academic needs. This process allowed us to increase the number of students who earned the syllabi literacy from 42 to 68 students. The instructional leadership team also focused on implementing career and academic plans to support course offerings and strengthen our career and technical education programming to keep our students engaged. We also expanded our partnerships for post-secondary options to increase college readiness access and to help our seniors graduate college ready and remediation free. We also adopted a distributed leadership model to build the capacity in teacher leadership and to invite teacher thinking and to encourage ownership of the entire school community. We also implemented restorative justice practices to help our students learn positive and proactive problem-solving skills and gain conflict resolution skills to help them remain engaged in their classroom. The framework laid the foundation so we could build teacher leadership capacity and to continue to build and refine school-wide systems and structures to have a comprehensive plan that is student-centered. This work from BT complemented the accountability systems that were previously identified, such as attendance, behavior, credit audits, lesson planning, unified improvement plan monitoring tools, among others.
Question 2 was, to what degree did the action result in improvement? From my point of view, I see a new reorganized Adam team working long hours and dedicated to turning the district around as quickly as possible. And in year 2 of turnaround plan, we plan to continue to move forward. We now have a leadership team who knows how to analyze data and produce results based on evidence. In my opinion, this slide speaks for itself. As you can see, the colors clearly show improvement made over the past year. The external management organization you approved last year is helping the district make vast improvements. Highlights include the district not being in turnaround for 2 consecutive years. 6 of 11 schools moved up at least 1 category. 2 schools that were in turnaround last year got off of turnaround. And for the first time, as I stated earlier, we have 3 performance schools, and we do not have any schools in turnaround.
Question 2. To what degree did the actions result in improvement at Adams City High School? Although we did not earn an improvement rating on the school performance framework, in the next 4 slides, I would like to highlight other objective measures that show the school is moving in a positive direction. The school moved from turnaround status to priority improvement status on the school performance framework. We had a 38% increase in English proficiency on the WIDA Access assessment. And then for the first time, Adams City High School earned an exceeding rating for ELD growth. We had a 14% increase in PSAT math from 5% to 19% proficiency. We also had a 14% increase in PSAT scores from 17 to 30% in 9th grade proficiency. We had a 43% increase in AP scores, students earning a 3 or higher. We also experienced a 9% increase in seniors meeting college readiness benchmarks, and therefore decreased the mediation rate for our graduates. The following slide highlights the intentional focus we had on student climate and culture. This was a paradigm shift and helped us to invigorate the focus on students. We had a 44% decrease in behavior incidents, a 57% decrease in in-school suspensions, a 40% decrease in out-of-school suspensions. We also saw an increase in appointments with the school-based therapist, an increase in appointments with our external community reach center therapist, and we also increased the mediation and social emotional group supports. This slide focuses on our efforts that students graduate on time. This slide shows that even with a high population of emerging multilingual students, Adams City High School is holding their own with other high-performing districts.
Why did the district not result in a higher rating? There are 3 reasons why the implementation of Beyond Textbooks did not result in higher ratings for the district. And I'm going to stray from my notes, and I'm going to speak from the heart because I have 3 reasons written here, and those are not the ones I'm going to share with you right now. The ones I'm going to share are from my personal point of view. And the reasons were, the district needs to improve the attendance rate of students and staff. No matter what system you put in, if students aren't there, they're not going to learn. So this is a challenge we have and something that we have to overcome. 2, the impact of being turnaround. It has a great effect on the climate in our schools and in our district. It makes it difficult for people to want to come and work in Analyst 14. And once they're here, they keep hearing the rumors that we're going to close our schools, so they don't stay very long. So that turnaround just keeps going and going. And 3 is, I've worked in various systems over the past 40 years, and I'm going to admit that Adams 14 is behind in creating systems, and that's why we're here today, because we need help. Those are the reasons.
Question 3, why did the actions not result in a higher rating for Adams City High School? As we enter year 2 of the turnaround plan, we continue to refine the new systems that have been implemented. In order to accelerate the work at Adams City High School, we must be intentional and responsive to the following areas. As we implement new systems to support Beyond Textbooks directives, additional time is needed to cultivate a transformational mindset and increase the level of capacity of all staff to fully carry out the work. For example, we need additional PD to build teacher knowledge and capacity on best practices with culturally and linguistically diverse learners, and differentiated PD to address the various levels of skill sets that our educators currently possess. We also recognize that this is a community-wide effort and that it is why we need to build a cohesive organization, staff reorganization to address urgent instructional needs and directives, because we need a more flexible process for placing students within a college and career readiness pathway.
How do we accelerate our schools? We understand that we are on a limited 3-year plan and will need additional help and supports to reach our goal of getting the district out of turnaround as quickly as possible. We have answered the 3 questions, and now we are posing a 4th question. How do we accelerate the school improvement process? Beyond Textbooks has allowed us to establish a strong education foundation with a curricular framework. It provides us with a common language to increase our knowledge of the standards. Now we must continue to build other systems of reform to hire and retain teachers with the skills and the will to do this work for our students in our community. We must continue to develop and grow the skills of our leadership team, both at the district level and school levels, to truly expedite student achievement. Next steps to systemic reform. We propose 3 areas of focus to build on our current external partner beyond textbooks. The 3 areas of focus are based on community input, reports from the state review panel, and all district data and surveys. In the area of leadership development, we need to develop leadership skills in all levels of this organization. All stakeholders are to be included: students, parents, paraprofessionals, community members, teachers, teacher leaders, and administration. In instructional transformation, we need systems that promote positive short-term and long-term results in student achievement. Lastly, the organization culture shift is necessary to develop trust and confidence and to create the foundation needed for increased student achievement. As you can see at the top, the vision and mission are at the center of our work and will be developed collaboratively with input from our community and our district. This slide is very important. The district has a proven record of working with external management organizations and has demonstrated that it is willing to follow both recommendations and directives. Based on its productive working relationship with Beyond Textbooks, the district anticipates a fully collaborative relationship with a new external management organization. The district is willing to grant even more authority to a new external management organization within the scope of their operations. The new district level external management organization will be empowered to give directives to the superintendent on non-personal matters in the following areas: organization culture shift, instructional transformation, and leadership development. The district level external management organization also will have the authority and be expected to make recommendations to the Board of Education on all matters within its governance of the district. The same authority granted over the district will also apply to Adams City High School. Page 15 of the concept paper outlines in more detail the specifics of the levels of authority granted in the external management for the external management organization. The areas of focus, key elements needed to move forward will be the creation of a new vision with critical input from our community and stakeholders. The process will be led by Team Tipton and will be supported by Beyond Textbooks and a new external management organization. The new external management organization will provide clear direction and oversight in leadership development process by improving strategic staffing systems and by creating cycles of continuous improvement that will expedite student achievement. In the area of instructional transformation, Adams 14 must change, and the external management organization will provide clear direction on the instructional transformation that is needed. The trend of having 80% of our students not functioning at grade level is unacceptable. The external management organization will have oversight of the instructional framework and systems that will be implemented in our schools. In the area of organizational culture shift, the challenge of turning the district around and having all students succeed is the responsibility of the district and the community. We realize that we cannot do this work together, and we cannot create these extensive changes alone. Some of the target outcomes are listed, and we've included the areas of early literacy, attendance rates, reading and math, and graduation and dropout rates.
This slide highlights the overview of the key elements in Adams City High School Pathway Plan. The top 3 strategies are the pillars to anchor the foundational work at Adams City High School. These key strategies were outlined in community meetings, data reports, and the School Works Report. In the area of leadership, the School Works Report highlighted the following. The school requires a partnership that will provide strategic support to the school's leadership and to ensure effective oversight and implementation of change efforts. In the area of instructional transformation, the report pointed out that Adams City High School needs consistent, ongoing, and required time for professional learning for their staff to ensure that they are equipped with the tools and skills needed to effectively execute the instructional program. In the area of organizational culture shift, the report highlighted that teachers and students reported that it is challenging to get parents to come to the school to be active participants. Students further reported that often parents are too busy to participate. Each of the key strategies outlines a series of action steps that will be supported by the selected EMO to meet the targeted outcomes of increasing graduation rates, reducing the remediation rate, decreasing the dropout rate, increasing the achievement status, the achievement growth, and increasing access proficiency scores.
In addition to addressing our 3 focus areas, it's important to note that the new EMO will be our accountability partner. Every Adams 14 member will work in conjunction with the external management organization to strengthen and support the 3 focus areas. Also, the Board of Education will create conditions to strengthen and support the key focus areas. The board will work with the external management organization to monitor implementation of the district pathway while communicating successes to the state board. The external management organization will provide systemic assistance to the district and Adams City High School by providing clear direction and oversight of the district's pathway. The expected outcomes are the district will meet identified implementation, performance, and accreditation benchmarks.
The high school accountability structure is similar to that of the district. We recognize that one of the most important roles of the EMO will serve is providing accountability for my team and for me as an external perspective inside the school. I would also like to highlight the expectations of the EMO is to provide oversight and guidance in the following areas: coaching focused on school leadership, talent management and retention, quarterly monitoring of benchmarks and other academic data, semi-annual site visits with school, district, CDE to assess progress towards established turnaround indicators, and written reports to CDE, District Board Education, and the State Board of Education. We fully understand the urgency, and we have taken many steps to cultivate a culture of continuous improvement, and our school team is looking forward to working with the assigned support organization. We anticipate a productive and harmonious working relationship with the EMO, and we welcome this partnership opportunity and fully embrace the added layer of accountability while continuing to build capacity.
A new external management organization was the recommendation of the Straight View panel. We agree with them, and we are ready to move forward with a request for qualifications. These are the choices that you have before you today, and we hope that you will honor our proposal to move forward with an external management organization. We have prepared 2 timelines for implementation of our new external management organization pathway. One follows our district's process of 26 days, while the other is more ambitious and follows an 18-day process to completion. We welcome your feedback on each of these timelines. I would also like to state that our board has indicated it is willing to consider suspending policy to select an EMO as quickly as possible. Some of the suggested partners are listed. Also, vendors that we envision may contract with the district and provide the needed services for our students and our schools. We thank you for allowing us to present our proposal and plan on moving forward to you today. We know that you have a very difficult decision to make on behalf of our district. We ask that you honor and respect the recommendation of the State Review Panel and the recommendations for Adams 14. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much from staff. At this time, the State Board will engage in discussion and ask questions of the district staff or legal counsel for, let's say, the next 45 minutes. And then we'll have a few minutes of reflection.
I'll let you know when you're at 15.
What? Pardon?
I'll let you know when you're at 15.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate that. Board Member McClellan.
Thank you all for your presentations. I very much appreciate it. I want to thank Board President Quintana as well as Superintendent Dr. Abrego for your candor in indicating that Adams 14 does need help and that the children should come first. I'm going to pivot and ask a legal question of our attorney from the Attorney General's office. In the event that the board were to vote in favor of the recommendations of the State Review Panel, I want to make sure that I understand clearly exactly what impact that would have on any chartering procedures. Do I understand correctly that in the event that this board were to adopt the recommendations of the State Review Panel, that any application for a new charter school in Adams 14 would still have to go before the locally elected school board? Do I understand correctly?
Board Member McClellan, Madam Chair, yes, that's exactly right.
Okay. I just wanted to get that clarification on the record to make sure that I understand what a vote in favor of the State Review Panel does and does not mean. Thank you very much.
Other questions? Tell me no one has any questions. Board Member Rankin.
Dr. Patterson, we haven't heard from you. Could you tell us a little bit about your background with Adams 14 and what you've been doing in the areas of curriculum and instruction?
So I've been with Adams 14 since October of 2016. I started out in human resources, and I was there for 2 years, and then I just moved into curriculum instruction just this July. And so I was able to look at some systems within the district on what we needed to do, but we still have more work to do in the Office of Curriculum and Instruction. So currently I oversee assessment as well as the English language development department. I also oversee teaching and learning, where we oversee schools, and so we work with all schools in the district and all principals and other school leaders within the district. What I see is in Adams 14 is I see a system that where we do need help and we do need support. We do know that leadership development was suggested within the school panel review, but we also know that we need some help with instructional infrastructure. We do know that we need support in looking at student learning first and making sure that students have what they need. And so I am there to provide that support and that leadership in that department so that we can put those systems and structures in place.
Could you define instructional infrastructure?
What I mean by instructional infrastructure is I mean that we need a common curricular framework, which we have, which is provided by Beyond Textbooks, but I'm also looking at a common instructional framework, a teaching and learning cycle, a cycle where we have common language within classrooms, a cycle where we can see some of the same and similar instructional strategies in with the classroom so that we can move students forward. So that's what I'm looking for, something that is pre-K-12 across the board. I'm also looking at instructional resources, so common resources. In the case of when we look at an elementary math program, we have Singapore math in our elementary schools, but I'm not for sure what we have in middle school or high school, and so we should see some kind of common thread a math curriculum, a common thread of language arts curriculum throughout a pre-K-12 system. That's what I mean by that.
Do you mind
Dr.
if I-
Abrego.
Do you mind if I elaborate? I'm just going to try to keep it very simple. In Adams 14, we now have a curricular framework where we understand what is taught. The next stage would be is moving forward and having a system in place on how to teach a standard. So that's where we are going.
Okay, thank you. So I have a question, probably for Dr. Abrego, but also for the board president. What does true or full management mean to you?
Well, it's going to be put me in a difficult situation, but I understand that I have to do what I have to do to help the district grow. I'm going to have someone overseeing me and giving me directives. I hope that this EMO works side by side and helps me grow. I've worked with other EMOs before, and that's the way we've done it, but I understand the position that our district is in, so I will do whatever I need to do to help the district move forward. And if that EMO comes in and gives me directives, I will follow them.
In terms of human resources, hiring and firing, will the external management company have that authority?
I would say not, because I don't even have that authority. I only make recommendations to our governing board, and by law, that's their authority. So the answer would be no.
Board Member Quintana?
Yes, external means that they will cover the administrative portion of the building, the ESS building, and any recommendations that the external would see in need of, they would bring it before the board, the 5 of us. And
So that is to whom the EMO would report?
Right.
Yes.
Okay. How about HR?
HR would be the same.
They have the authority, you have the
No,
authority?
they would have to, any hiring and firing comes before the board.
Maybe we didn't understand your question. Is your question, will the EMO have authority over HR?
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Yes, it's
they
the
will.
whole
Okay.
Yes,
administration.
they're going to have
So
authority
to the
over
extent there are necessary changes in any staff position, district or school,
Could you restate that, please?
to the extent of any position, district or school,
They will manage and have oversight.
have oversight. Okay.
But not on the hiring and firing. That would still would
Well,
have
that's
to
what I'm
co-
talking about.
Okay,
You're saying no.
no.
Were you ready to ask a question, Board Member Flores? I was filling in because there was some sleepiness.
I am.
Okay.
And I would like to ask Dr. Jeanette Patterson this question. I know that the district is very married to beyond textbooks. I would like to ask your expert opinion on whether, I know you've been there for just a short time, and you've been doing other duties, but you've been in the district. Would you say that beyond textbooks is a curriculum that is sensitive to the needs of the district? I know that the district has said before when they came to us that it would hurry up, it would expedite getting to being on target and getting students to learn and being at grade level. What do you think? What is your expert opinion on beyond textbooks?
I believe Beyond Textbooks is a program that does meet the needs of our district. And the reason why is because from my experience in another district, teachers had opportunities to unwrap the standards. Teachers had opportunities to work in professional development, and we do have that. But with Beyond Textbooks, what it provides the lesson totally. It provides the scope and sequence. It provides the calendar of when Teachers are supposed to be teaching. It provides the assessment through our Illuminate system, and so it is a curricular framework that will work. I believe that we are just now implementing beyond textbooks to full implementation in 7 schools. I do know last year we did not have the Illuminate system running to full implementation with beyond textbooks. I do know that it takes 6 to 9 months to train teachers in beyond textbooks. And so with that, it is an extensive program that will work when we have the time for full implementation for that. And this year we are doing it. So I do believe that it does work.
Okay, I have a second question.
Dr.
So-
Abrego would like to
Oh, I'm
to add to
sorry.
you.
I
to the
didn't-
answer.
Board Member Flores, I was just
didn't
going
see
to
that.
ask, it would be all right if I were to call up Dr. Bench. Dr. Bench has worked with the state standards, and she is our new BT coordinator to elaborate on your question.
Well, I have just, can I just finish my questioning?
Sure.
And then you can,
Okay.
or else it'll just be. So, one of the things that a curriculum also does is it helps teachers with skills. And one of the things that happened, or that was reported by the people who went in to evaluate, is that they found that that teachers weren't asking higher level questions, which is really a very big thing in trying to do well on the test. So, have they had Bloom's taxonomy? I mean, have they worked? Does it include Bloom's taxonomy in it so that teachers know how to ask, higher level questions? And what about the skills in kind of not just teaching to the class, like verbally getting in front, but getting group instruction, a variance of teaching skills, like working with groups to come up with, trying to come up with different ways of coming up with the answer, and working in groups, teamwork. There's lots of ways to teach, and so it seems that the declaiming or getting in front, and I can't think of the word now, but is about the only thing that they saw. So does Beyond Textbooks have variance in teaching skills for teachers?
You want me to take that?
Yeah.
Yes, and if I...
And then if you want to.
Okay. I would just like to answer your question, and that is one of the things that BT, when they walked through, they said, when we're going through your classrooms, we're not seeing the rigor. Your teachers are not asking those higher level questions.
Yes, I
They
was
also
concerned.
said student engagement was not
Right.
on target, so they come back, they give us feedback, and then we in turn have to send our people out to the schools and help them and provide professional development in these areas. One thing that you were talking about when teachers get together, that was a great thing from Beyond Texas, because if I teach a lesson and if I have 20 students and only 10 were able to learn the lesson, now later on the day we have that reteach block. I have to sit together with the 4 teachers and say, what happened in my lesson? Why didn't my kids learn? So I get to collaborate with those same teachers in my core or my subject area and try to figure out why my lesson wasn't successful. Beyond that, we have to figure out the kids that didn't learn it, who's going to help those kids? You did a real good job with that standard, so you take those students. And then it does help us as far as our PLCs,
Right.
professional learning communities, to really have those difficult conversations.
Well, and I know that a day is 7 hours, 8 hours. So sometimes reteach actually may mean a week. For some students, it may mean 2 days
Oh,
or
yeah.
whatever. And so for that, I think teamwork sometimes is not as efficient. until you have trained teachers that have the autonomy and have the skills to know that this is a kid that needs reteaching and this is what they need. And so if you work by teamwork as you're doing, I don't know if it would be as efficient as getting really a good curricula, a good trained teachers with the autonomy to make decisions right there and there, get a list of students who didn't get it, and this is what I'm going to do next. Because that's
Thank
the way
you, Dr.
teachers-
Flores. We're going to go on
That's the
down
way teachers think.
Go on down the
Thank
table.
you. I hope I answered your question.
Board Member Shuffle.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentations. I just have a number of questions about, similar to what Dr. Flores was asking about what goes on in the classroom, because we know no matter who oversees it, really it's about what's going on with teachers and students in our classrooms. So I'm glad that you feel Beyond Textbooks is working. It's essentially a curriculum calendar that allows you to have systematic approach to the standards. My question is, Super Kids, a K-2 literacy curriculum, why do you think that will work? Have you begun that? Is that something you're going to start? Can you speak to that?
I see it from a high level, and I know that it was brought to my attention that our students were lacking in kindergarten through second grade with phonics skills. So, Dr. Patterson, can I turn that over to you as far as the Super Kids?
I'm gonna refer to Jamie Ball.
If you would have one of our
Yeah.
staff members come up here?
Good morning. I oversee the early literacy part of our department, and we are working very closely with Schools Cubed, and they did an early literacy audit this year of our programming, and they made the recommendation that we adopt a curriculum such as Super Kids that would be a little bit more rigorous, that supported the 5 components of literacy. And that went up for board approval last night and did get approved. So that's where we're at with Super Kids.
So may I follow?
Go ahead, Dr.
So you haven't begun it yet, but you're going to begin it?
Correct.
Okay, great. And you chose it because it's research-based, because it covers the 5 components of reading? Is that a very deliberate choice?
It was a very deliberate choice. One of the reasons that we picked that is it has shown much success in Colorado with students of our population. And I know that we put it in front of our teachers, and they felt like the stories that are within Super Kids represent the kids that are of our population, and so that was one of the reasons why we felt it was appropriate for our district. I know that there's a couple neighboring districts that use it and had much success.
Great. Okay, thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Thank you.
May I continue asking a few questions?
Sure.
Can you speak then to the issue of the Chromebooks? A lot of people feel like adopting technology is kind of a panacea. Obviously, it's how is it used? It can be a great student engagement tool, but depending on what the students are doing with technology, that's what matters. Can you speak to how you use that in tandem with your Beyond Textbooks or whatever else?
I can speak probably at a high level, and when I got to the district, I saw that we were really behind as far as technology, not just the Chromebooks, but other areas. So we brought that in immediately. I think it really is helping our teachers as far as expanding how they present lessons in the classroom. Again, you saw an example with the video on how our students were making their own presentations, exploring how to, I believe it was different foods from different parts of the different countries. It's just incorporating technology into the standards, and that's from my personal view. Let me see.
I would say for the high school, it helps us to do blended learning and differentiation instruction. So students, if they need that additional support, can complete lessons through like Khan Academy to support and fill in some of the gaps they might have in math. And again, it's just a way that teachers are able to also accelerate the learning for kids who have mastered some of those standards can move on.
Okay, should I continue or can I ask a few more?
Just a couple.
All right.
Mhm.
When
I'm
you did
itching to talk.
Okay, when you did walkthroughs, what did you find? You said you did walkthroughs. That's a great way to get on the ground. of what's happening in classrooms and kind of seeing trends among teachers across schools and levels. What did you find when you did walkthroughs?
So again, supporting teachers with, again, high-level questioning, supporting teachers how to differentiate for content and language, helping teachers really engage students instead of being more teacher-directed, focusing on it being more student-centered. So again, based on those trends that we see, then we provide professional development or also coaching support to our teachers.
Okay, I'll swing back if I can.
Okay. Yeah, we're running out of time. I listen with interest to the various programs that you are looking at considering, implementing, etc. But if you have an external management organization, are they the ones who are going to decide what they believe is appropriate? Or is there a requirement that, for example, Beyond Textbooks or Tipton Team or all those things in your mind, that those need to continue? In other words, what's really the authority of someone coming in, evaluating what's going on in your school, and potentially making changes? And will they have discretion over funding issues as to how to pay for it?
I think everything you said is true. The EMO will supersede Beyond Textbooks and our other partners, and they're the ones that are going to manage and have oversight of our district.
Which could include saying that this one's not worth it or that one's not effective enough, etc.
They could do that, but it's our hope that they collaborate with our other partners.
Okay. I keep hearing the word collaborate. It has a different meaning to me than supervise.
The EMO will supervise the external partners, but what I'm saying is we hope that they all work together.
Okay. And then how are you going to pay for this?
How are we going to pay for this?
For
It
the
is-
EMO.
It's going to be expensive, and I'm not going to lie. It's going to be difficult because we have a certain budget that we have to work with. So in order to implement this, we're going to have to figure it out, and we're going to have to determine where that money's going to come from. So it's just from our budget. We're just going to have to move things around.
Have you started thinking about that since you're bringing this forward, or?
Yes, we have. And the good thing is that the board has also authorized us to go into our reserve
Your
funds.
reserves, right, because it's
reserve funds if we have
theoretically
to.
one-time money.
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense. Board Member Durham.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have some questions for Ms. Quintana. In looking back on what you've done to this point, could you enumerate any authorities that you believe the board ceded to the existing outside management or consulting organizations? Are there any?
I don't believe we have any, really, other than BT.
So have you ceded any authority to them to decision make or to make decisions absent your approval? They have to bring things to you.
On some things, they do bring them to us. And they come through the superintendent, and then he brings them to us. So that's how we do
So
that.
you really haven't ceded any authority. You're still in a decision-making role as a board. Is that
Right.
correct?
Right.
Are you willing to
but-
cede any authority to the new management organization so that they can make decisions independent of board supervision?
I would say we're willing to work with the external. It's not like they come before us and tell us what to say, we listen. I believe as a board, we listen what they're saying, and we take into consideration. And we say, we work together as a team. That's how our board works. To the degree that we, right now, are saying we need some external management help. And I believe we're at that point where whatever decisions they would make, I would totally, with my board members, my co-board partners, discuss and take any decision under consideration.
Without any commitment to implement it, just to consider it.
No, I mean, we would work at it, you know, and if that's their professional decision, that's what we would do.
And you would have a contract that would make it clear that you would do
Right.
that.
Right.
That you would not, that if they recommended it, you will do it.
Right.
And that's what your contract would say.
Well, we've done that with BT. When we signed on with BT, we had a contract with them of what they direct us to do and the directors and everything. So,
Just seems a little unclear as how it actually works in practice, if you hit a sticking point. Let me move to, the State Review Panel noted that, that your union contract hampers professional development and training. Have you attempted to renegotiate that contract to remove those impediments to appropriate professional development and training?
is that me?
Yes, ma'am.
Those contracts come up in every March and April open for discussions. So at that point is when we would bring up those issues to, in negotiations, to change MOUs or whatever they have in there that we need to discuss. So if we need to change a school day or make it longer, we have to bring it up in March. I believe that's when they start.
So you didn't do anything this last March to
No.
try and remedy any of these issues?
So, no.
So, the, are your administrator, the contracts that that the district has with the administrators of the school, from superintendent to principal and assistant principal, are those at-will contracts, or are they?
They are.
So they are at-will, so.
Yes.
So they can be terminated?
Yes.
Is that termination authority something you're willing to give to the external management organization?
Not at this time. We'd have to discuss it with the rest of the school board, because I'm just one person.
I understand that.
So I would have to
Well, how about you
discuss it.
personally? We'll just start with you.
You know, I would have to discuss that with my board members and with our local attorney.
So how many professional, instructional, and administrative employees does the district have?
About, well, 900?
And of those, how
Approximately.
many would you classify as administrators? And in two categories, administrators central office and administrators in building.
About 10% of the staff. So we have probably, I'm gonna say around 90.
And that includes central office
Yes.
and in building.
Principals and that.
So that at least those 90 contracts are at will,
Yes.
are at will contracts. Okay. So getting back to see if I can phrase the question a little differently. Are you willing to enter into a contract with a external management organization that cedes final decision-making authority over everything but personnel matters to that external management organization?
Yes.
So it'd be clear that you couldn't interfere in any way with that decision, whatever it was in terms of curriculum or instruction or professional development
That,
or.
yeah, that would be.
And I think in our presentation, we showed that the new EMO would have managed the district and administration. They would also have authority over the superintendent and our schools. The only thing they don't have authority over is our governing board. So all the directions that they have will go through the superintendent, because I manage the district and they're gonna tell me what to do, so I'm gonna adhere to their directives.
Unless the board tells you to do something else.
Well, but the.
That's, I mean, that's, we're trying to get to the point of who's really in charge, and it's difficult to serve more than one master. So either the board's going to voluntarily relinquish that authority, or they're not. And if the board voluntarily relinquishes that authority, they won't be considering matters of curriculum, instructional detail, any of those things. They won't be considering it because they will have voluntarily ceded that authority, not to you, but to the external management organization. Is that where we're gonna be when we're done with this?
We don't know, because we're treading in waters that we have never been before. This is all new to us. This is all new to you. The same thing that when we brought Beyond Textbook, we had to speak with you, negotiate how that was gonna work. So I think this whole new process, you know, we're going a different direction. We've already told you what we're gonna do, that we're gonna let this EMO have authority over the superintendent, over the high school principal to manage our schools. The details, I think, will be figured out, you know, as we negotiate this process or go through this process.
Do you have any objection to those details being subject to the approval of the Commissioner of Education?
Again, we've never gone through this before, so those are things that we have to talk through.
And then returning then once more to the personnel to the management of personnel who are at-will employees. That's something that could be ceded by the board to the external management organization. It's not subject, you could easily, if the contracts currently require are between the board and the administrative personnel, those could be redone or reworded. I presume those are annual contracts, is that correct?
Yes.
And when do those all expire, generally?
They all fire at the end of June.
So they could all be redone for the next year so that the external management organization would have that authority.
Oh, I guess we're just.
They could.
They could, a lot of things could be done, but again, I think the most important thing here is that you're talking about hiring, firing. I think as a superintendent, I've done, you know, a lot of reorganization and worked with at-will employees. So again, we do want the ultimate decision makers as far as hiring and firing be in our school board. That's their authority by law.
And I think most of at least the data we look at would tend to indicate that a lot of success or failure of improvement plans is really boils down to school leadership. And someone has to evaluate that leadership and act on those decisions. And that's something you don't want to turn over to the external management organization. Is that correct?
They would recommend?
No.
No. The question's been answered.
Again, I think those are details that have to be worked out.
Thank you. Okay.
In 2017, you came before us, and I hear a lot of the same things. I'll take a quote from your district plan, page 8. When community, students, and staff are involved, all students learn and succeed. That hasn't happened. District has opted to leverage an external partner to focus on management of academic systems component of school turnaround process. We haven't seen enough growth here. It takes everyone, and I have heard loud and clear from all of you. I've heard loud and clear from parents, teachers. We have pages and pages of what people have written. Some have even put forth a plan that we should consider. One of the goals you have written in your systemic reform is student attendance rates of 95%. What are your student attendance rates now that will be better when they go to 95%?
our attendance rate throughout the district, except for the high schools, is 90% and above. Our most difficult area is at the high school level, and that's about 86%.
Okay.
Which is causing many of our problems.
So there's where some improvement is going to take place. We're going to raise the teachers' attendance to 97%. Where is that now?
We do monitor that on a monthly basis, and we did understand that was a challenge for the district, so we continuously monitor that every month. We give reports to our board, and it is improving. Right now, I believe it is very close to 95. And we had it at 95 last year. We moved it up to 97.
So your goal is pretty much what you think it is now, or is it 95 now and you're going to move it up to 97?
Well, we're shooting for 97%.
Okay. All right. I have to commend the parents that have tried to come forward and make some changes, and I understand their fear of retribution with their students. It's not just in your district, it's in other districts where there are difficulties and challenges. Bringing that community together, I think, is probably the biggest challenge you have. But you had it in 2017. We cannot allow students to fail any longer. We have a major decision to make, and it's very difficult to make. And I have to say, I haven't heard anything today that's any different from what my opinion is now from having read everything. I'm very concerned for the students in Adams 14. I just want to put that forth.
Board Member Sheffel, what's our schedule?
You have 24 minutes left.
Total?
Mm-hmm.
Good, thank you. Go ahead. Board Member Goff. No, we're going as I see hands, and I realize I need help with that too.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you. It's nice. Appreciate the efforts. It's I don't know that there's any way to really explain the level and the degree of complexity and intensity and passion and excitement and downtrodden feelings that everybody goes through with this. I do have to reiterate comments that have been made about the number of letters and messages that we have received. It's been astounding and effective and instrumental in helping everybody who's reading them, everyone who's living it, everybody who's thinking about it, to gel up just exactly where they are and figure out the best way to move forward. Some of my questions, quick, and I will be efficient and quick. I really have, as a lot of you know, a personal interest in this well-being of high schools. So some of what I'm going to talk about with you, I hope, is at that location. Not to isolate it from the big picture, but I do think the tone of the high school and the atmosphere that is set by high school students and those communities are instrumental in modeling for the community, but also to give a sense of that importance of having those high school graduates and those starting at the high school ready to go forward and to move and to take up the mantle that your community deserves them to have. And that's where I'll enter some questions. The distributive leadership model, for example, at the high school, how have you tried? Has there been some smattering of attempts to make sure that's distributed literally among all the staff? And that, along with the idea of the work with the BT work in the 9th and 10th grade, even if we do talk about the freshman and sophomore year with BT, how are teachers of other subject areas being brought into this work? Is there a sense of the staff that there's a way for everybody to communicate and contribute? That's really the word I wanted first. Contribute and communicate about what's happening in the school. just things to think about, because those are questions that I have always in observing the workings of schools, especially high schools. Is there a place for everyone to make the contribution and give something back to the cause? Professional development, maybe a little bit more of that. I guess I'd ask also generally what your definition of stakeholder is. We see that word a lot, and it's in a lot of different contexts, so that it's pretty easy to say, well, stakeholders are the community and their teachers and their personnel and other personnel besides administrators and educators. Are students part of stakeholders? And the one thing that I was looking for in reading through my voice, looking through reading all of this material was where are these young people? We are all, I think, in our world, dedicated to the idea of student activism and involvement and learning and growth. And I know that Adams County, and the high school in particular, does have a student body representative group, if not formal and regularly appearing. There is a development of that going on there. And I would just say until we can really say Adams County young people in that community is on their way, it'd be nice to see where it's coming from in those young people. I think your community is ripe and prime and ready to find ways to get involved with that. And I think this interchange of making requests would be helpful. It's part of a plan ahead. And then I think lastly, I'll stop with, you know, I also celebrated with you. I do appreciate greatly the success at the middle schools, and you're at middle school Kearney especially, but also Adams City has chances and hopes, as well as the Legacy High School. So there are things that can happen there. I just find it interesting, and I would wonder if your community does too. When we look at this chart of the plan, the ratings over the past several years, I would be ready, if I were you, to answer questions of the community. Why is there a bright patch of bright spots in the middle schools? And it's been pretty steady for a long time. What's going on there that would be, should be shared and promoted and valued in all kinds of regards, whether it's the personal relationship building or the instructional technique growth patterns. So I would just say, in wrapping up, I appreciated other questions about governance and such, but what, you know, I would wonder what your list or short list of what kind of consequences you're thinking of when and if this does not pan out again. There is a phrase to that effect in your plan writings that speaks to tangible consequences. What would those be? And because it seems that there's confidence and belief and dedication to this cause in your district and your community that it's time to move this in a better direction right now. So, you know, knowing that you're strong and courageous and willing to do that, that's the key right there. So.
We asked a lot of questions. I don't know if I can answer them all, but I'm going to just start with one, okay? The first one that you talked about, what are we doing at the middle schools or the green schools that moved up to performance? If you look at what's going on in those schools, is the most important thing is that the principal and assistant principal have been there working together for 4 or 5 years, sustained leadership. At the same time, if you look at the turnover rate in those schools, it's very little. It's very little. So that's a key component. So what we did is we took, as you said, the principal of Kearney Middle School, who had elevated that school to performance. We now moved her to central office, and she's working with 4 schools to support them. So that's one process, but the most important thing we do if we really want to improve is it's sustained leadership. We have to keep our leaders, our principals in their places. The high school, you know, it's had 8 principals in 10 years. We're happy that Gabriella came back for year 2, and we hope to have her here for a long time. And I think if she's here, she'll show you that she can change our school. The other question, if you can help me out.
You had the question about distributed leadership. So all department chairs are invited to be part of this instructional leadership team. And then we also have PLC leaders. And then we also have our instructional coaches that we meet on a weekly basis to, again, talk about the trends and what supports are needed for our teachers. We also implemented the school leadership team, which again, we invite all teachers to be part of this team to give input in regarding to school schedules, events, all of these things to help the operation of the school. We also implemented the BAC committee, which is the Building Accountability Advisory Committee, that includes, again, teachers, community, parents, and students, to again keep them informed, to give us feedback on the Unified Improvement Plan and other events that are happening within the school.
Are teachers able and available, and are they included on a regular basis? When you talk about stakeholder conversations and other planning sessions, is there a regular avenue for teachers to be involved?
Well, that's why that was the first time last year that we implemented that model.
Right,
to
in
really
your school,
within
correct?
our school.
I'm sorry, but I'm kind of thinking more district-wide. So in your interaction with the community, is there a regular presence of the classroom teacher voice in the room? I do know that, I know this, I lived the life a little bit too, that the representative, the association representatives and others, as a body, that's one thing. I think, having that feeling though generally among all those teaching staff, is there a way they can count on being regularly with you all in your planning and your conversations? And your community, a lot of times the interests of the community in having those needs met is exactly the same as the teachers. So that's a question, but appreciate it. Yes, and the integration of content areas, that's detail that that's up for you all to work with, but it's of interest.
So we did expand the professional development of BT with our science and social studies teachers, as well as our ELD teachers and our SPED teachers.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Real quickly, please.
I asked a couple questions at the curricular level. I just wanted to ask a leadership question. So the review panel recommendation says that the implication is that the leadership doesn't have the capacity to act as a change agent to drive dramatic change, and that another comment, no evidence that the district's using data to drive changes in instruction that would lead to student performance. Why is that? You can cede your authority to an external entity. That probably isn't the ideal thing that you'd like to do. Why are you not able to exert leadership in the district and achieve the kind of ends that you'd like to achieve, that the families in your community want, that your parents and teachers want? Is there something that's an impediment there that could be addressed as a root cause as opposed to ceding it to an external entity? Can you speak to that?
I'll try my best. Again, I'm going to admit that when I came in as superintendent, we did not have the right systems in place for accountability. So we really did have to improve those areas. Improving those areas made a lot of people uncomfortable. We're asking people to do things that have never been done before or that they weren't used to doing. So implementing that system of accountability greatly is improving our schools. You can see that our schools are moving up. It's not easy work, so that's one thing that we're doing. Can you ask the question?
Using data? One of the comments was not using data, but yet you're doing formative assessments.
And I specifically told you that we really had to reorganize the way we were doing things because we didn't have the data. I kept asking the superintendent, I need this data. I didn't have it. So now we had to create that department, and in the past, our data department was way over there, and our instructional leaders, curriculum instruction, were here. So what I did is I made them all work side by side so they could all work together. If you look now, we have our secondary, elementary, special ed, they're all working close together, and especially with our data department, because again, we had never concentrated on read plans. I kept asking, why do our kids keep, more kids on read plans? No one can answer that. Now we can, and we know exactly why. And then we monitor these plans. And again, if you know about DIBELS, you have to progress monitor every 10 days. Is it being done or not? We know now, and we have our leaders going into the schools and telling our principals, hey, we're running reports. They're not progress monitoring every 10 days. So we are learning to use the data. And again, as a superintendent, I did have to reorganize to make sure that we had the right people in place that were willing to put in the hours to turn us around. It's difficult work.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it.
So folks, we talked about keeping 15 minutes available for each of us to be able to kind of reflect. And so I hope we're ready to do that. Pardon?
Yeah.
Board Member Durham, are you willing to start that? Or have you not reflected?
I'll give it a whirl. Thank you, Madam Chair. This is, I think, year 8 on the accountability clock for.
Yeah, but it's year 10 or something otherwise.
Yeah, at least. And so that's really a whole generation of students that have been underserved. And I think it's clear that that what we did last year, it was, at least as far as I'm concerned, was not implemented in the way that I anticipated that it would be implemented, and it certainly didn't achieve the result that I hoped it might achieve at that point in time. This board's obligation is to ensure that that children of all districts in Colorado are well served by the educational system that's in place in each of the districts, and the legislature has set up a system to review these districts, and has given this board certain authority over a very limited number of those districts. I mean, we're really down to now, I think, 2 out of 179 that really fall into the category of needing, at least by the legislative standard that's been imposed, needing significant supervision. So I think it puts an onus on us that if we can't do something to ensure that children in Adams 14 ultimately have a better educational outcome, then it's probably shame on us. These are not easy decisions for this board because you've talked about being on new ground. We're all in that same boat together. But I think allowing the situation to continue as it has over the past 10 or so years is not an option that, at least it's not an option that I will support, and that the action we need to take is a little more vigorous than has been taken in the past. So, I don't doubt that everybody is well intentioned, and I don't doubt that you have a lot of very hardworking people, but the proof is always in the result, and the result has not been good. I don't think anybody could characterize it as being good. I don't think it's a result that would allow us to defend the current delivery system. So I'm personally going to work for some significant change in the delivery system. Thank you.
Board Member Flores.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to bring up some of your district goals, which I think are admirable. They're to educate, to inspire, and to empower. And in fact, this is what the letters that we got were about. They talked about problems in education, kids not being on grade level, there's talk about not being inspired, students not being inspired, and I think, and I'm speaking now about the high school, because I think that was the letters that I got were about. And also the big issue of empowering. When people feel empowered, they're usually part of something, and they'll work together with a group. And it feels, and they think they're not empowered, that they're not being heard. The community feels that they're not being heard. So, I mean, these goals that you have, as I said, are very admirable, but yet these are the same issues: educate, inspire, and empower, that people do not feel are going on in Adams County. So I think my question is, what would you do as a district to accomplish these goals that you've had for a long time? I see that a vision can be brought together, can be made, can be created from educate, inspire, and empower. And so I think too that a change, you talked about change, that change is needed. And the correct change is something that, I mean, I think everybody here has alluded to.
We're
Big
gonna
change.
work on that this afternoon. Right
That's
now, I
right.
just I do appreciate your reflection. Board
Thank
Member
you.
Rankin?
I just have to concur with what Board Member Durham said, and I have reread what we did in 2017, and I was extremely hopeful for that management promise then, and I look forward to discussing this further and making a difference for the students in Adams 14.
I just want to thank you for your candor in answering questions from the board today. I know that you've indicated that students should come first, and that there's agreement that you need help. One concern I'm having is from the state review panel recommendation, where they note that Beyond Textbooks does not view themselves as an external manager, but rather as a partner. My concern with just piling on with a second partner is that we're defining insanity if we keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. My hope is that we may be able to offer you true external management rather than another partner riding in the sidecar like Beyond Textbooks role. But they're going to need to have the ability to perform that function, and I'm hopeful that we can work through that process so that we can get you the help that you've indicated that you need. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you again for being here today. I would say that it looks like from your plan that you have some good things in place at the classroom level, curricular level, leadership level, but we really look forward to working with you so that there can be some great solutions that not only represent a good plan, but great outcomes for your students they so well deserve and that you're very committed to as well. Thank you.
I so much appreciate the work and the thought and the heart and the mind that's gone into this district and throughout the community over the last couple of years. I appreciate it very much. It's very hard. It's also hard to watch the young people and their families and people who work hard and devote their lives inside schools every day to feel at a loss. I think it's harder to watch other people go through some discomfort sometimes than it is to do it yourself. But I would continue to encourage you in reaching out, and just the fact that you are looking at outside help is key. That's a strong way to take an approach to get better. I don't think, and we've heard quotes to this effect, I don't think anybody is ever so strong that they don't ask for help. And that's where we are right now. So I wish you luck. I do look forward to working alongside with you, and we all do as a board. We're very, very dedicated to making this work out for you all. So thank you for being here and contributing so much to kids' lives. Appreciate it.
Earlier this morning, there was a comment made that maybe we've not heard enough from the community. I want to tell you specifically something that I have heard. Quote, "Change must come from the bottom up. It has to start with students and their families, but we need the help of the state to help us. We need you to stand alongside us and say what is happening in Adams 14 is not okay. We've heard about your struggles, but please hear about ours too. This is not something that we necessarily go out and look for. But the situation is dire. I appreciate the improvements that you articulated, but they are nowhere near sufficient for your kids. It absolutely has to ramp up. What I believe I've heard from my colleagues is that we have three choices, essentially. We can continue with the plan you have, we can continue with the turnaround plan and add additional actions, or we can discontinue the turnaround plan and take a new action. I think that what I'm hearing is that the first one is not where we want to be as a board, and that's not what we're recommending. We have allowed some more time to talk about this. I'm sort of wrapping this up now to respect everyone's time. I expect that about 5:30 or so we'll resume, and I think we'll talk about options 2 and 3, that keeping things the way they are is not one of the things that we are considering. I do want to thank the educators, the district staff, the partners who have been working so hard to improve outcomes for the students. And I appreciate the experiences that the community members have brought forward to us, the students, the families, the community members, etc. I believe that if the directed actions are to positively impact students, it's going to require the work of the local board, the district staff, the administrators. The state board has very blunt options, and alone they are not going to solve the problems. They are only hopefully going to provide the venue to help you continue the work that you're trying to do. So I want you to know that we appreciate what you're trying to do. We just need a kickstart of some kind to make things work a little bit better. So this afternoon, probably about 5:30 or 6, we'll continue this discussion. I want to thank colleagues. I know you've been working super hard and been very, very thoughtful. I appreciate it. We'll take a recess now for a couple hours and continue with our board meeting, and then continue back with this particular item at the end of our board meeting today. Thank you.
Thank you.